While the world waits for the next pope to be chosen, let's take a moment to talk about the last time a papal funeral went, well, very, very wrong. I'm talking exploding organs, liquefying flesh, and a smell so bad it made the guards switch shifts. Hi, I'm Lauren, a mortician, and I help people look peaceful in death. Today we're diving into the haunting story of Pope Pius XIV, is XII the Fifth, and why his funeral was a full-blown body horror film that changed Catholic embalming forever. So let's set the scene. Pope Pius was born Eugenio Pacelli, and he led the Catholic Church from 1939 until his death in 1958. He was pope during World War II, an extremely controversial time. Some praised him as a diplomatic genius. Others criticized him for not speaking out more publicly against Nazi atrocities. But regardless of your historical take on him, his legacy was about to be seriously overshadowed by what happened to his body after death. So Pius died at the priesthood summer residence Castel Gandolfo, about 15 miles outside of Rome. Now, when a pope dies, you'd assume Vatican professionals would step in to preserve the body, but not this time. Instead, his personal physician, Dr. Galazzi Lisi, took it upon himself to embalm Pius using a method he made up. And I wish I was kidding. He made it up. So let's break down what he did. He made a paste of formalin and alcohol. He slathered it on the body externally. He injected more into the abdominal cavity, but not the arteries. Interesting choice there. He stuffed the nose and throat with herbs like myrrh and aloe. So very biblical, but not very effective. This wasn't embalming. This was a bad Pinterest DIY gone corpse wrong. He even bragged about it in newspapers about his natural preservation technique. It was so bad that the Vatican banned him from ever working for them again. Now let's talk shop. Mortician to viewer, true embalming involves arterial injection. Preserving fluids are pumped into the vascular system. So we inject embalming fluid in your arteries, major artery. We want to mimic what your heart is doing right now, pumping blood through your body, but we inject embalming solution instead and drain the blood through a major vein, like your jugular vein, ideally. Cavity treatment. So we aspirate the organs. So that means we just poke them with a stick and fill them with cavity fluid to stop internal decay. Then we do body positioning and cosmetics. So done right, it should slow decomposition. Doesn't stop it, but it slows it. It keeps odors at bay and gives the family a peaceful goodbye. What happened to Pius? None of that. Absolutely none of that, because his arteries weren't treated. Gas buildup from bacteria began almost immediately, and because his stomach was essentially marinating in a weak chemical, he started to decompose from the inside out. So, let's talk about what the public actually saw, because yes, they held a traditional viewing. Yes, the general public was invited, and yes, people saw the decomposition with their own eyeballs. This was not behind closed doors. Pius's body was transported back to Rome and placed on display in St. Peter's Basilica, just like popes before him. But unlike popes before him, he was visibly decaying. Visibly. Eyewitnesses said the discoloration of his face was so severe, it looked greenish black. A journalist reportedly described the odor as unbearable, and some said they had to hold handkerchiefs over their faces just to stay in line to view his body. Some Vatican insiders even claimed that his body started to leak fluids during the procession. This just gets worse and worse. One version of the story says the abdominal wall literally burst in front of mourners. Not a metaphor, not a behind-the-scenes mishap. It happened inside of the basilica. People fainted. Understandably, people fainted. Swiss guards switched shifts every 10 minutes to avoid vomiting. Like, what? They tried masking the odor with incense. Yeah, that didn't work. Death was winning. And the worst part, the whole world saw it. You couldn't unsee or unsmell that level of decomposition. Thousands of pilgrims and dignitaries came to say goodbye to Pope Pius. Heads of state and global ambassadors attended the funeral mass. Leaders from Italy, Spain, the UK, and even the US paid their respects. But what many of them got was a front row seat to a papal body that looked more like a martyr in decay than a man of God in repose. And word spread fast. The press, normally respectful, right, because we're talking about death, couldn't ignore what happened. Italian newspapers called the scene disturbing. Even Life magazine ran a piece comparing Pius's viewing to a cautionary tale in preservation. The backlash was so severe, the Vatican made sweeping changes, starting with kicking this Dr. Galilei to the curb and banning his presence at any future papal event. My goodness, could you imagine? Now, you might be wondering, if this was such a public disaster, why can't you find photos of the body? Well, there are photos, but they've been sanitized. Images of Pope Pius lying in state exist in archives and newspapers, but they're carefully staged, taken from angles and distances that hide the worst of the damage. His hands are gloved. His face is shadowed or turned. The Vatican was not about to let a liquefying pope go viral. As a side note, if you want to see the pictures, I'm going to post them on my YouTube page right now. I would include them as a visual so you could see it like I want to, but I will get flagged for this video if I do. So I will post it as a post on YouTube, and you can go see it right now. But then come back, because we're not done yet. After the disaster, the Vatican implemented new rules. No public photography of a pope's body before it has been fully prepared and vested. This wasn't just about dignity, it was about controlling the narrative. So yes, people saw the real scene in person, but the history books, they got the airbrushed version, Vatican approved. So how this changed papal funerals? The Vatican learned its lesson. When Pope John died just 5 years later, they hired trained embalmers who performed full arterial embalming, cavity work, and cosmetics. And when his body was exhumed decades later, it was so well preserved that they displayed him in a glass case in St. Peter's Basilica. People even called it miraculous. But no miracle, just competence. And just like that, Pope Pius became the final cautionary tale in papal funeral history. So yes, the public saw it, the press reported it, diplomats smelled it. And that's why Pius's funeral is remembered not for its pageantry, but for its decay. It became the textbook example of what not to do. And today, while we wait for a new pope to be chosen, just know, somewhere in the Vatican, there's probably a top-tier embalmer standing by with a very well-stocked kit. Or there better be. But you know what? After seeing Pope Francis's body, I might be taking that statement back, because I would have thought this before Pope Francis died. But after seeing his embalming job, no. And that is how I know that Pope Francis, other than the obvious signs looking at him in the coffin, was embalmed. Because nobody wants another melted pope incident. The Vatican is not going to chance that this time. So, I'm Lauren, your friendly neighborhood mortician, reminding you that even the holiest need proper post-mortem prep and care. Subscribe if you want more death disasters, decomposition breakdowns, and funeral history that'll stick with you forever. And let me know what else you want to see, if there's another case you want me to cover, or any questions that you're dying to know, please leave them below, and I'll be doing a little Q&A video probably next. So thank you. Talk to you later. Love you. Bye. Talk to you later, like as if we're on the phone. Okay.